So first of all, why 2030? The current decade will see the UK face some of its biggest challenges since the immediate post-war era, which followed the Great Depression. A decade of austerity where multiple crises around housing, elderly care and slow economic growth, followed by COVID, have impacted on opportunity and quality of life, and an uneven distribution of resources and life chances across the country. The public are increasingly unwilling to accept the status quo. They want something better, and we're seeing social movements spring up across the country to say the current system isn't delivering for me. Local government at its best can play an integral role in lifting those life chances for people from all communities in an even-handed and in a fair way. With a need to respond to climate change, digitalisation moving at pace, and more immediately COVID recovery, then this role is needed more than ever in a rapidly changing world. It's time to recognise that a well-resourced and a well-run local government can be an effective way of re-engaging a disaffected public. And yet, for over 50 years, there's been a long-term reduction in the role, powers and resources of local government as a result of successive governments and their civil servants placing little value on councils and centralising more and more. Councils have been viewed at times with a sense of unease by central government and seen as part of the problem rather than part of the solution. Viewed as inferior rather than as unequal in terms of their democratic legitimacy, they've gradually been stripped of their role and resources. Pressure's also built up as local government is diminished. Those public policy crises have grown that need to be resolved locally. The last 10 years have seen that pressure intensify to a point where the current system was at the verge of breaking, and then COVID has come along and exploded the tensions between central and local relations. The limitations of centralisation have been exposed. We live in an uneven landscape where knowledge of local circumstances is hugely, hugely important. The current system of local governance in the UK is under severe strain and can often lead to dysfunctional outcomes. It's been valiantly held together on a daily basis by the heroic efforts of elected members and officers across the UK. We need to fix the system in order that we have an effective mechanism for navigating the complex issues that society faces today and in the future. There needs to be clarity of role between what is dealt with at a national, regional and local level, and in our view, a realignment of responsibilities to the appropriate level, starting with the principle of local by default. We need to create synergy to allow scarce resources to go further by getting the system correct rather than inefficiency and bureaucracy by handing down resources through bidding pots or on a piecemeal basis. There needs to be recognition that each level has its own sphere of governance, its own democratic mandate and equal parity in terms of role and importance. There also needs to be a much greater clarity in the structure of local government in England by 2030. We need local government's role enshrined constitutionally so that its role and powers are clearly established and not beholden to the whim of governments of the day, either at Westminster or in the devolved administrations. We need a clearly set out framework and a plan for devolution. So what we'd like to see is give councils responsibility for tackling the multiple public policy crises we face. Let them transform local areas by reshaping, repurposing and regenerating local economies, local infrastructure and maintaining them as places where people want to work, live and grow themselves and their families. Let them build skilled workforces for not only their needs, but that of the wider local economy. Let them develop knowledge and skills within local workforces to tackle the climate emergency over the coming decades. Let them house the people who live and work in their area. Let them create sustainable transport systems for people to move around their area. Let them coordinate and integrate the care services that support the health and well-being of the public within their area. Let them decide the pace of the shift to the digital world and what this means for access to services and delivery platforms. What we're calling for is a reinvigoration of local government and the value placed on the local democratically elected representatives of local people who govern these institutions. Let's get the balance correct between what are council-wide strategic decisions and what are local councillor decisions at ward level. Let's not exclude those directly elected by local people from decisions that impact on their local neighbourhood. Let them hold all those services they provide, all those services provided in their area. Let them hold them to account. That's what they've been elected to do, to represent and hold these things accountable on behalf of the local community, particularly where this involves public funding. There needs to be much greater integration around health, education and housing rather than fragmentation. Value them and reward them reasonably for doing this, and you will attract people who are committed to doing this, are effective at doing this, and come from all walks of life. Let's make sure the system of local governance works for everyone and that they have an equal chance of being involved in running that system, not excluded from it by design. Let elected members set a vision for a well-trained and highly motivated officer corps, reflective of the local community, to implement on behalf of local communities. Let's invest in developing leadership, but not only leadership, but also training at all levels of local government, creating clear career paths for the workforce. Let's get organisational culture correct within that workforce, giving them a greater involvement in decision making. Local people from all communities delivering services for the local community as a whole, the one that they live within, to provide an improved quality of life for all the people that they walk amongst. Providing an integrated set of services delivered directly that are not only democratically accountable, but flexible and adaptable to local people's needs and public policy priorities as public policy priorities change. And ensuring also that local supply chains from the private and the third sectors are fully developed and supporting this work and help grow the concept of social value within the local economy. Let's find better ways of engaging with all communities within the local area and reconnect with the next generation whose future is going to be hugely dependent on decisions that are made on the big public policy conundrums of our time. Let's reach out and involve them in that decision-making process. All of this needs to be underpinned, of course, by a properly funded financial settlement based on need that guarantees a minimum amount of GDP to local government in order to fulfil statutory and core non-statutory responsibilities, plus the ability to raise locally based taxes for local priorities. There must be clear, understandable links for the public to what the tax they're paying for is spent on locally, regionally and nationally. In the immediate future, there needs to be a mid to long-term financial settlement for local government, whilst the current system is redesigned. Business rates model is reviewed and council tax revalued. The funding of social care needs to be addressed now. There has been too much prevarication. This can't go on any longer. In order to achieve the system change we propose by 2030, we either need a big bang approach or rapid incremental change that moves at pace towards fixing the system. We're calling for ministers within the UK government and the devolved administrations to champion this change by building it into their programmes of government. We believe that the establishment of a Royal Commission on Local Governance or a constitutional convention would be alternative ways of doing this, which could build cross-party support for change. A more incremental approach could be overseen by national governance committees across the nations of the UK, rolling out further devolution based on the principle of subsidiarity at pace. So let's reset the system by adopting the principle of local by default. Let's improve local governance in the UK. Let's tackle inequality. Let's reconnect communities with public services. And let's make the system work for all. Thank you.